Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Chai with Coaches. I am here with my fellow coach, Naheed Overfeld. Naheed, say hello to the folks.
Hello, everybody. Nice to have this time for just the two of us to talk about all the things that are on our mind and also hopefully on the mind of all the people listening to us.
Yeah, today we have a very interesting one. How are you constricting your energetic sphincter? Which is a always a fascinating way to say that. I love that. But Naheed, tell us more about what we're talking about today.
All right. You know how I love to talk about my training sessions with Lucy, right? Lucy's my little pit bull lab minx. And she and I and my husband have been working on training her. And one of the things that my trainer said, and I think I may have mentioned this before, is kind of having a loose leash philosophy. What I mean by that is I have gotten so fixated on all the things that Lucy has done in the past that's wrong. And I anticipate it. I expect that it's going to happen in the future. And so when we're walking, I'm literally walking with a white knuckle hold on her leash, keeping her right next to me because she's eating crap, she's doing things that shouldn't be doing. And my trainer was saying it's time for me to take deep breaths and really breathe. And what we don't realize in that process, okay, so the sphincter might not be the right word to use, but we constrict every muscle in our bodies, including your sphincter. And the point that I wanted to make with this one was that when we constrict, we're not allowing energy to flow into our lives. We're blocking progress. The kinds of things we're looking for, we're literally blocking it. Does that make sense, Drew?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're talking about that, I think of it as the chakras. Like you're constricting the chakras, so it's harder for energy to flow. Just like you said at the end.
Mm-hmm.
um, when you're tense, when you're in this state of constant stress or frustration or whatever that is that you're feeling, that emotion you're feeling with yourself, you're constricting that. You're constricting that energy flow, and you're stopping the energy, creating blockages, creating bottlenecks of that energy in your body. And as you do more of the energetic work, and for folks who are into energy, they can speak more to this and understand a little more. But it's really a matter of clearing that energy, allowing energy to flow more freely throughout your body. And if a good parallel is blood flow, right? When you're constricting your muscles, you're not letting the blood flow, right? Blood has energy in it. It allows us to actually do what we want to do. If you cut off the blood circulation to one of your appendages, one, eventually the appendage is going to have to be amputated because it's going to die. Essentially, your body's going to think it doesn't exist anymore. And two, it's not going to function in the meantime, right? So if you even cut it off for a period of time, you're going to lose functionality in that appendage. That's true within your body as well, and in your energy, in terms of whether it's your emotions, whether it's the way you connect with your body or connect with others. There are all these proverbial muscles, that energetic muscles, if you will.
Drew, you're talking about this program that I'm putting on about chronic pain because that's exactly what it is. When you anticipate emotional pain or anything emotional that's going to make you feel uncomfortable, you constrict your body. When you constrict your body, you constrict the blood flow, exactly what you said. And blood flow is what is required for your muscles to heal. It has circulation, it has fluids in there that is needed. It's got just even the blood platelets that are needed. So if you don't have that constant flow, I liked the analogy of blood. Same thing with your breath. Gotta breathe in and you gotta breathe out. You gotta let that flow continue. But it's not like we consciously stop ourselves and we consciously constrict ourselves. It's just that we live a life of so much just regular stress that unless it's over the top, we don't even know it. Like, how many people do you know that say that they have tight jaws or they grind their jaws at night? That's because they're living under very significant stress.
Yeah, it causes headaches. It causes all kinds of different teeth damage as well.
Yep.
And the other thing to think about too is you don't even, like you said, you don't even realize when you're holding your breath, right? When you're
Mm-hmm.
anticipating pain, I'll give you an example. I went to get my vaccine on Monday, right? Got it. Reaction was a different story. We'll talk about that another day. I passed out for like 24 hours. Anyway, um, when you go to the vaccine, you see people around you getting the vaccine, getting the shot, and they're holding their breath. They're like you can see them shaking for how tight their bodies are, right? That's not going to help you deal with that. It's not going to help you. You're anticipating stuff to the point where you're actually constricting every muscle in your body. What they tell you is take a deep breath and breathe and relax. And it's easier for the needle to go in, right? It's actually easier. It's easier on your muscles. It's easier on you. And the needle's in and out before you even know it. And that's the case with pretty much anything in your life. Of course, I'm going to do a movie reference here because that's who I am. anyone who's I forget the name of the movie now, but it's the movie with Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis. It's a comedy. Due Date, that's what it is. This movie called Due Date, and they get into a car accident, right? And Zach Galifianakis is passed out. He's asleep. And Robert Downey Jr. comes out with all these injuries. He's got a neck injury, he's got an arm injury, all this kind of stuff. And the doctor tells him that Zach Galifianakis didn't have any injuries because his body was so loose, and he was just like flowing with the car, like falling with it. And Robert Downey Jr. was very, very tense. His character is very tense, and he get all these injuries because he's like tensing up, trying to do whatever. And it's really fascinating because you look at that and extrapolate that to life and to like things that happen in our lives. When you're free flowing and allow energy to flow through you, good or bad or whatever you want to perceive that as, it's like a wave. You let the wave flow. You ride the wave. You don't try to fight against the wave because the wave's more powerful than you are. But you let it ride over. You jump the wave, let it ride the current, and then eventually it'll pass.
Yeah, and everything that we're talking about, that's the more immediate response. I guess the more immediate reaction that you notice when you're very constricted. But the second part about that is you are also blocking things from coming to you, and you have no idea how much and what you are blocking. So especially when you have goals that you've had for a very, very long time, right? So all the work that I've been doing and all the teachings that I've been attending, they will tell you that the energies can work like this. What stops it from happening so quickly is our resistance. And think of resistance and constriction in this way. It's exactly the same thing. You are constricting yourself, you're holding yourself back, and you're creating artificial resistance. But what we tend to do then, especially when it comes to money, right? We internalize it and we're like, oh, I'm not good at this. Oh, money is never going to come easily. The number one thing I work with my clients on is this belief that, for me at least, money cannot come easily. So they've created this wall, which feels very real to them. But as soon as that wall comes down, they understand, oh, that wasn't even there. That was a construct of my belief systems that created this constriction, restriction, however you want to talk about it.
Yeah. So Nahid, for your life and some examples that you've seen in your growth and over the years as you've done your work in this space, what have you seen for yourself in terms of these kind of blocks? What have been some of your blocks over the years?
Very much money blocks. So I really truly believe in this concept that you teach what you have to learn the most. And like I said, I'm putting together this program, and I'm sending out these messages, and I'm sharing my own experience. I'll give you a quick example that includes both the physical and the money block. So for very, very long periods of time, I used to have low back pain. In fact, I'd gone to a chiropractor in my 20s, okay, not even 30s, my 20s, for 2 years, 3 times a week, because I was in so much severe pain when it came to my lower back. And he aligned me, and I eventually got much better, and then I went right back into that old pattern. And it took many years later, because at that time I didn't realize that low back pain is very much associated with the emotions related to feeling financially unsupported. It's a common theme. I come from an immigration generation. It's something that we've all experienced, or let's just say many of us have experienced. And I had to learn to really work through those money blocks and understand money is nothing but energy, right? We never say, oh, love is too hard to get, or good health is too hard to get. So why would we attach that to money? So that I would say that's the thing I'm probably most proud of regarding my previous beliefs and how I feel about it right now.
I think some people do say that love's hard to get, just FYI. But to your point though, exactly. I mean, I think many of the folks in the immigration generation, or even the kids of the immigration generation, will relate to that. I think for me, I've always had back pain as well, and that's again, it processes in certain ways. The way that you deal with things is related back to that, and ultimately your body was going to show up a certain way. And if you're not in touch with your body, there's a whole area of coaching called somatic coaching, which is coaching through the body, exactly, and getting in touch with people. Having people get in touch with their bodies. And there's actually a lot of research around that in terms of trauma, right? People who've dealt with trauma, they disconnect from their bodies. And the name of the book I'm escaping right now, I think it's called The Body is Your Brain. I think that's what one it was. But there was one book that I was reading about this, and they're talking about a particular woman who had been through some pretty severe traumas for herself, and this psychiatrist wrote this book, and he's talking about his different patients.
Right. Dr. Bessel Vanderhook is, I think, who you're referring to.
There you go. Yep, I'm the worst person when it comes to authors of of books. I know the books,
It's
but
in my line. That's the only reason I know it.
there you go. Yeah. So Vanderhook, right, was talking about his client, and if you might remember this from the book, he recommends massage as one of the things he does with his clients. And so this woman they turned the light off to do the massage, and she started freaking out because she didn't know where the massage therapist was. Mm-hmm. And the massage therapist was like, I'm right here. And she was holding onto her feet, and the woman couldn't tell because she disconnected so deeply from her body. She couldn't feel this woman holding her feet. Right. That's how crazy this can get. That's how this kind of energy blockage can manifest. You lose touch with reality. You lose touch with your body. You lose touch with other people in your life, right? Those basic connections, the ones that we have with our body even, are disconnected. And so if that can happen, think about what down the line can happen with relationships, with your stress, with the way your body flows, and with blood flow, with heart disease, with diabetes, with all these other diseases that come up from obviously other bad habits at some level, but there are other situations where there's no reason, there's no medical explanation for why someone has these kind of things, right? It can come from this kind of disconnection.
See, it all comes down to that sphincter, right? You don't want to constrict that sphincter.
Well, I mean, every time you say that, I think about the book Everybody Poops, right? and then I also think about the idea that, healthy sphincter, healthy life. Honestly, if your stomach is healthy, everything else is going to pretty much be healthy, right? So if your digestive system is healthy, you'll pretty much be healthy. But this is that's a different kind of talk.
It's a different kind of talk, but what you're referring to, what you said earlier, this is your root chakra. This is chakra number 1. If number 1, which is grounding you into this 3D dimension, if chakra number 1 is not open, right, then you are going to feel like you're never fully grounded. In other words, you don't fully feel like you fit in. You're always going to feel like you're disconnected some way in very important areas in your life. So it's really important that you want all your chakras to be balanced. I'm not trying to diminish the rest of them. But if number 1, it's number 1 for a reason. If number 1 is not deeply grounded into this planet and into your reality, you have issues that you're going to notice in all different areas in your life, and you're not going to be able to understand why. It's going to feel very disparate. Like, why this here, why is this happening to me? So yeah, I completely agree with you on that. So what areas in your life do you feel like you had to work on and release control, or release this feeling like you're not in the flow?
I don't think we have enough time to cover all the areas in my life that I've had. One would be money, for sure. For me, there was this idea, this belief that it's never going to be enough. I don't have enough, and it's just, and even at the point where asking for it's bad, or proposing to offer services to a client it's bad, and ask for money. It's like there's all these beliefs underneath it, right? So it's blocking. It's like these friction points that I create in my head that don't actually exist in reality, but they're in my head and they're affecting my reality, right? But as you're talking about the chakras, and I just made this connection right now, is the root chakra, like you said, is the foundation. It's the one, the kind of the security and grounding chakra. But it reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And the very bottom of Maslow's hierarchy is your absolute basic needs, right? Food, sex, shelter, and security. That's at the very bottom. And then you can never possibly achieve self-actualization if you don't get that bottom thing figured out, right? And so folks who are trying to do some deep work sometimes need that foundational work, right? Even if you go through a massive transition in your life, you could be at the top of your game doing amazing things, and then suddenly something happens and your whole life shifts, and you got to start from what it feels like from scratch. But ultimately, you have to get that foundation and recreate that for yourself. And a lot of times people get lost in that, or they never create it to begin with, right?
Yeah. And I think everybody needs to work on that. I don't care how much money or how little money, what your security level is. It's an emotional security. There's so many people who you may look at and say, well, why are they feeling so unsafe or unsecure? It's because when they were younger, they didn't get that security in some way, and they haven't learned how to create it. And we all have to in some area. This is not a judgment thing. It's just a simple fact that all of us need to go back and look at our foundation. And to me, the foundation is the subconscious. What's going on in that subconscious? How are you when we think about conscious bias and all the rest of that, that's all residing in there. Unconscious bias, I should say. You feel it towards other people, but you also have unconscious bias towards yourself, right? Somebody else who may be doing the same thing but is well known, you don't question how much that person is charging or what that person's self-worth or worth would be, right? But you turn that unconscious bias inward somehow and say, somehow I'm not capable of that, or I'm not worthy of that.
Yeah, I mean, we hold ourselves to different standards we hold other people to. When we can very easily turn that lens inward and say, okay, you know what, they did it, so now I can do it. But instead we say, oh, that's for them. I can't possibly do that because they're doing it. We do the
Right.
opposite, right?
Yep.
And it's really interesting how we limit ourselves. But our beliefs are what limit us more often than not. And it goes back to, again, what can you control? You can control yourself, but you're what you can control internally is a lot more powerful than what you think it is. And we give ourselves these limitations of being able to control what we want to control, whether it's our money flow, whether it's our love flow, whether it's just our energy in general. How do we feel about ourselves? There's some folks who just insist on being negative about everything that happens. Like, oh yeah, that's great, but this and this, but let me focus on negative. Let me focus on negative, and never take time to acknowledge positive, no matter how small. It's worth acknowledging the wins, right? It's worth acknowledging things that little victories are what add up to make things great, right? Change is not something that's going to happen overnight. The GameStops of the world, those kind of things, that doesn't happen more often. Typically, that happens once in a while. If you ride it, then great. If not, you missed it. That's great. But the iterative small changes are really what add up over time to make those massive changes. You mentioned, no, you didn't mention, but we talked about this before. Ken Honda has this whole thing about money, right? And we'll do another session just on money, because money by itself
Let's focus on that a little bit later. But yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, Ken Honda has this whole thing about money and how, like, money is energy, right? And you have to look at money as energy and appreciate it and say, say thank you to money, or arigato money.
He calls
right?
it happy money and crying money.
Yes, exactly. And so there's a whole energy around that. And like I said, we can do a whole nother deeper session about money, because money itself and all the beliefs around that could be another whole 4 hour session right there.
Yeah, I completely agree. So money's my forte, so I will not even touch that because you might not get me to stop. But I wanted to mention something. A good friend, you know him too, Kenny Salzman. So I'm going to do a little bit of a shout out for him too. He sent me an email yesterday about an interview with somebody that maybe you know. I think his last name is Croce, Pat Croce, owner of the 79ers or 76ers or something like that in Philadelphia.
Yeah, 76ers.
Sixers. Okay, there we go. So it was a very interesting article. Well, it was actually an interview that I was listening to. It was a really interesting interview because, first and foremost, he was set up as being this massive, successful, go-getter, aggressive, pushing, what have you. And it almost seems that in itself was interesting, that in order for somebody to be given credibility, like, hey, you should listen to this person, they need to go through that entire spiel about, look how traditionally successful this person is. And then it talks about him going through a life transformation. And from the best that I understood, the transformation actually occurred because he read something about the oracles of Delphi and the Temple of Apollo, where the philosophy or the message from the god Apollo is know thyself. And I thought really long and hard about that, because what ends up happening, we live moment to moment. Yes, we're thinking about the past and the future and all the rest of that, but we aren't connecting the dots between what's happening. What we know about ourselves from past experience, we really are not applying, from the standpoint of, look, this is my weakness. So let me figure out which way I can mitigate that weakness, right? We just seem to jump right back into that pattern all over again. And I feel like that message, know thyself, is really important here, because where is it that you are not allowing yourself clarity to understand what's going on in your life, what might not be feeling quite so comfortable in your life, right? Because it requires reflection, responsibility, and all of those not so lovely things.
Yeah, no, and that's a big challenge nowadays, especially. I think in today's world, we live in this world that's driven by technology, driven by social media and all these other things, all these external influences, right? All these ideas of what everyone else thinks and what everyone else is saying and doing. And we don't take time to look at ourselves, to look inward, right? I think that's why, not to do a self plug, but coaching is extremely important for that reason, because we do that work. We hold up that mirror and help people see themselves better, and see themselves not better, but see themselves more effectively, more efficiently, and like looking at that, taking that hard look at yourself. And sometimes it's not going to be fun all the time. There are clients where they're just multiple sessions where they're just like emotional, crying, frustrated, whatever, and they walk away with that. But then after a while, taking that hard look and looking at themselves in the eye, essentially, and seeing what they see back, what they see in front of them, that after a while you start to realize, okay, well, here's actually what I can recognize, what I want to do, and here's where the difference is between where I am now and where I actually want to be. And until you take that hard look at things and really say, this is where I'm actually at, and really take responsibility and be yourself accountable to where you want to be, you can't really make progress. And that's another kind of energy as well. It's that wall between yourself and yourself, if that makes sense, right? You're putting up a wall between your ability to see yourself, because you don't want to see yourself. Some people are just not ready for coaching, right? There's a whole idea of like readiness to coach, right? Is this person able to be coached? Are they coachable? And the people who are in denial, that denial is just fear. It's fear, because you're afraid of getting to know yourself, because you're afraid of what you're going to find, right? You're afraid of what you're going to discover about yourself. You're afraid of who you actually are. You'd rather paint this picture of who you are as this whatever, right? And show the world this thing, whether it's true or not, but then also ignore all your perceived faults, rather than face yourself and actually make some real improvements, real strides, right? There are people who are in otherwise successful positions that fall into this trap. And so it's really powerful to take that hard look at yourself, and it's also very difficult too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I will also say, because I mentioned this before, I work with the coach Jeff Miller, and there's some things. So I've now been working with him for 4 years. So there's some things that he has to bring back year after year, and finally, I'm like, you mentioned this a few times. Now I'm ready for this, because I wasn't ready when he first mentioned it. It was too much of a leap. It felt too uncomfortable. Whatever the excuse was. It's not just the person has to be ready for coaching, but every issue itself might not be the time for them. Very often I will tell my clients, look, I'm just seeding the issue right now. Maybe one day you'll pick it up and you'll move forward, and maybe you may never pick it up and you move forward, but I just want to bring this to your attention, and then you can decide what to do as you move forward.
Yeah, because ultimately it's their choice, right? They can choose not to deal with it, or they can choose to deal with it. But just like, another example, I had a client today I met with a couple hours ago, and she wants me to work with her husband on his business and what he's doing. And she keeps telling him, like, hey, she's like, I keep telling him to call Drew. I'm like, give him time. He'll come when he's ready. It's fine. And if he doesn't, that's cool too. But, it's up to him. You can't force him to come talk to someone. If he feels pressure to come talk to me, he's not going to make the progress he needs to make, right? Exactly. He's not going to be able to do the work, because you're doing it for you and not for himself. And ultimately, that's what you have people to do. You have to do it for yourself. The energy has to get to the point where you have to build up that energy in yourself to be able to say, I want to look at myself and see myself through the clear lens, right? And essentially that's what we are, right? We're the ones cleaning the mirrors so people can see themselves more clearly,
Right. No, I completely agree. So when you think about this upcoming season, eventually COVID will be over, whatever shape or form that takes. As you release your energetic sphincter and you're allowing more things in, what are some of the things that you would like to grow in your life?
I have a couple ideas of programs that I want to do. One of them is around imposter syndrome, and an offering that I want to do, like a retreat for that, which is going to be coming later this year. But in terms of just some other things, like some love stuff, relationship type stuff, would be nice to get that figured out. But there's a lot of things, a lot of long-term goals that I have for myself in terms of business, business goals, personal goals, life goals. I want to travel more for sure. I cannot wait to start traveling again, because that has been one of the toughest things in terms of, I travel to see my brother and my nephew once in a while, but I still want to be able to see the world again. I know I'm waiting for the world. I'm waiting with a lot of anticipation for the world to open up again so I can travel again. What about you, Naheed? What are some things you're looking to open your energy around?
My continual openness to money. So what I mean by that is I've got some really bold visions for how I want to be able to attract money in my life. And one of my goals is to not have it linked to work. So energy, money is energy. And just like tides go in, tides go out, money will come in, money will go out. But how we attract money, we have a very prescribed way. It has to be through work, it has to maybe through investments, whatever it is. But money can come to you any which way you want to. So what I would really like to do is get into that place where I am in command of my energy and not the other way around. And what I mean by that is it would be great to be able to say, for 6 months, I don't want to work. Maybe I want to travel someplace. Maybe I want to write a book. Maybe I just want to do speaking engagements. But the money just shows up because I've set the intention and I don't have resistance that it's not coming because I'm not working. It's not coming because of this reason. Or worse yet, when I met my husband, all the way in the beginning, I had no job. I wasn't coaching. I felt worthless not making any money. I even asked my husband, like, why would you want to marry me? I'm a liability to you right now. Right. So I've moved beyond those, thankfully, those feelings, because that's how we feel. If we are not making money, we feel like we're a liability. But now I really want to take it to the next level, because if I keep talking to my clients about money being energy, and you can not manipulate in a bad way, but you can, using your consciousness, you can create that abundance for you. I got to start doing that for myself as well.
Absolutely. No, 100%. I fully agree with that one too. So yeah, for folks watching, thanks so much for tuning in today. If you have questions or thoughts about this, what are some areas in your life where you want to unblock, or where you think that your energy might be better used, or feel like it's constricted somewhere? If you are feeling that way, then talk to someone, reach out to one of us or both of us, and feel free to comment below as well. But realize that these are things that everyone deals with at some level or another, right? Everyone's dealing with restricting their energy, constricting your energy, blocking energy, whether it's positive or negative. You don't even realize sometimes where your energy is blocking good things from coming into your life.
Exactly.
Right? Even the simple thing of saying, like, I can't find a good X, right? Mm-hmm. That thing is now blocked because you're saying I can't find it, right? As opposed to saying I haven't found one yet, right? The yet, that very, very small word, means so much more to you and to your subconscious and to the universe and to that energy you're putting out into the world, right? Or even just shifting it completely to say, I'm looking for this, right? And then asking people, like just saying, hey, do you know a good X? Do you know a good chiropractor? Do you know a good coach? Do you know a good bookkeeper? Whatever that looks like, like, as opposed to saying, I can't find this. I can't find it. Oh, just forget it, whatever. And then that leads to frustration.
It does. And as you were saying this, it reminds me of something that I think everybody can relate to. Say you dropped your keys somewhere, you put your keys down, you put your wallet down, you put your something down, and 2 hours later you're looking for it, you're searching high, low, whatever, you can't find it. You finally have to walk away because you've looked every place. And then when you are in a less stressed place where you're not, again, constricted and restricted, you're like, oh, that's where this was, right? That's a very simple but very tangible example of how, when our emotions get in the way, we literally, it's like we can't see things. The solution is not available, even though it was right there in the same place that you looked maybe 10 times before.
Yep. And that's also why we get the best inspiration sometimes while we're in the shower, or while we're driving, or while we're doing something where we're not actively doing that thing. Right. Because we've freed the energy for our brains to actually function and use them properly and effectively. So
yeah, absolutely. My best ideas come when I'm walking my dog and walking around the lake, because I have to focus on her, and then every now and then an inspiration comes through.
For me, it's when I'm driving. Always when I'm driving, because I can't. It's frustrating because I gotta wait. I gotta record this and send it to Hannah or something like that. But anyway, great conversation. We're right at time right now to keep this at 30 minutes as we go forward. But thanks to everyone for tuning in. For those who did, for those who are watching after the fact, thank you for watching. Hit the like button, hit subscribe if you like this video, and do share this to other folks who might need to hear this or see this. If there's even a piece of it, let us know what you thought about it too. And any more topics you guys want to cover or things that you want to discuss, we're happy to talk about those. We'll do a deep dive into money, I think, another day once when we get some feedback on that. But Nahid, as always, pleasure. Good times.
Same here. I get a lot of insight myself from listening to you speak, and I'm sure everybody else does as well. So it's always lovely to be here.
Yeah, it goes both ways. I appreciate it. Thanks. Take care, guys. Stay safe.